Good evening, everyone. I am proud to share that our student Ravi Kumar secured 84th rank in Civil Service Examination 2020. Ravi Kumar belongs to Alwar, Rajasthan. He graduated in civil engineering from IIT Roorkee in 2019. He also got 770 rank in his first attempt, and he got IRAS. Now, in this attempt, he was able to secure 84th rank. And this is such a great achievement that in the second attempt only, he was able to secure such a good rank and going to be an IAS officer. His hobby is to play guitar and watching movies. And with this, I would like to request uh, Prasad sir to say few words about Ravi.
रवि को मेरी बहुत बहुत शुभकामनाएं, हार्टी कॉन्ग्रेचुलेशंस। और जो ये सफलता प्राप्त की है, ये बहुत लगन, डेडिकेशन, फोकस्ड अटेंशन और हर चीज़ को समझने के ऊपर है। जिस तरह से इन्होंने अपने सेकंड अटेम्प्ट में ही 84th रैंक अपना ले लिया है, भारत के इंडियन एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव सर्विस ऑफिसर हो गए हैं, ये अपने आप में एक बहुत बड़ा प्रेरणा का स्रोत है। और जो बच्चे तैयारी कर रहे हैं और आगे के लिए सिविल सर्विस ज्वाइन करने की उनकी इच्छा मंशा है, तो रवि के वक्तव्यों को सुनने से, किस तरह से उन्होंने तैयारी करी, किस मेहनत और लगन से उन्होंने पढ़ाई करी, ये अपने आप में काफ़ी प्रेरणादायक होगा। मेरी रवि जी को बहुत बहुत शुभकामनाएं हैं और ईश्वर से प्रार्थना करूंगा कि उनको दिन दुगनी और रात चौगनी उनको तरक्की मिले। बहुत बहुत शुभकामनाएं रवि।
Thank you, Prasad sir. Now I would like to request Ravi to share his strategy regarding civil service examination, regarding mains examination and interview. Ravi.
Hello, sir. Good evening, sir. Thank you very much for your appreciation. I'm also excited to join the services as IAS officer. I got 84th rank in this attempt, and there were a lot of improvements that I made in this attempt that apparently actually reflected in the paper and finally into the marks. So regarding that, sir, would it be fine if I just how should I take it? Like, should I take it subject wise?
Yes, you should start with the mains examination, your strategy, how you did your strategy paper 1 to paper 2, 3, 4, so that the students get insight that how exactly you understood all the subjects, how you prepared, which book you referred, what was your unique strategy that in both attempts you were able to secure the ranks. And then you can discuss about your experience in this civil service examination.
Okay, sir. So as I would assume that everyone knows about the pattern of mains. Mains consist of 9 papers, out of which 2 are mandatory papers, English and 1 additional subject. They are just the qualifying subjects papers. Other than that, there are 7 papers. 1 is essay. Then there are 4 GS paper, that is general studies paper, general studies 1, 2, 3, and 4, which which covers different areas of UPSC syllabus. Then we have two papers of optional, and my optional was geography in both the attempts, in my last attempt also, in this attempt also. So regarding all of these, there are certain few broad guidelines which I would be covering very quickly, and there were few specific details that I did for each one of them. So coming to first listing out the sources or the books that I used. I used the very basic books, books that everyone, almost everyone follows. For example, some of the broad areas that I covered through the books were, I covered polity from Lakshmikant, and economics was done through the online videos, YouTube video of Mrunal sir. Then for environment, I did Shankar IAS, and there was also a few supplementary material regarding that. Then for geography, I focused on NCERT, and since geography was my optional subject also, so I already had extensive matter regarding geography. Then in terms of art and culture, I followed Nitin Singhania, few chapters of Nitin Singhania. For modern history, it was Spectrum, and for ancient and medieval history, I would say I refer to the source of Tamil Nadu book, 11th class Tamil Nadu book. However, I could not cover my ancient medieval history properly in any of the attempts, first attempt or second attempt also. But that is one of the sources that I used. So these were the major sources that I used, which almost everyone is aware of, for both prelims and mains. And I referred to these books only in my interview also. So the sources were very much limited. There were few additional supplement sources in the different stages of this exam. For example, in prelims, I would find some of the supplementary materials for environment related questions. Similarly, in mains, there are some segments that are not covered in these books. For example, international relation is not there, so I try to cover that from the current affairs sources. Then there is also security that is not covered. There is disaster management that is not comprehensively covered in geography. So these were the things that I actually used internet extensive for. And there were multiple channels on YouTube available, multiple sources on Google that were available that I made notes of, small notes of, and I stick to them. I keep on I did a little bit of upgradation of my notes in my second attempt, which was also reflected in the answer that I wrote. So these were largely the sources that I used for each one of them. Now going in for all these papers wise, first is the essay. Now regarding essay, I would compare my both the attempts, my first attempt and my second attempt. My result, my numbers have been almost similar, and they've been decent number only. They are not very good, but they're above average. In my last attempt, I got 126 in essay, and in this attempt, I got 131 in essay. So essay was something that I read no source for. Essay was something that I extensively used the toppers' answers, previous year's answers, and I saw how they were utilizing the space that is available to them, how they are expressing their views. So in doing so, I came across different strategies that they were following in essay, and then I myself wrote few essays and came to a conclusion about how or majorly what my template should be, and that I applied in my essay examination. So for example, we all know that essay comes into there are two sections of essay, of which one essay we have to write. So one essay we have to write a philosophical basis, and another one is regarding certain general issues or general studies related those things. So philosophical philosophical essays, I for both the essays there were few things that I used to do. First is the moment I get the paper, I used to check the options that are available with me, from which I have to choose the topic. Second, once I find a specific topic is good for me, and there are certain things in my head that I can write, I pick that topic and never question it again. For example, I would never reconsider going to another topic so as to reduce the time and get more efficiency. Third thing is, when I chose a subject, when I would choose a topic, I would be brainstorming for 5 or 7 minutes. Some people take 15 minutes or something, but since I realized that my writing, the actual writing of essay takes a lot of time for me to formulate it good and nicely, I try to minimize the time here. So 7 to 10 minutes of brainstorming would be there, where I would be using different ideas, what all things I can use. So I would write them at the end of the paper, and then try to formulate a very good essay as per whatever I think is the good. In doing so, I will try to I will try to inculcate almost every domain that I know regarding the topic. For example, I can take the real example also. I can take the real example. This time I wrote an essay on the topic of there was a topic called technology aiding in international relations. Now that was something that has a lot of current aspects inculcated in it. So what I did was I tried to think of the different type of technologies that are being used. Then I thought of different domains that it is impacting the international relation. For example, in terms of economic ties, in terms of cultural ties, etc., etc. Then I also went as far as segregating the different countries on the basis of what is the level of their technological exchange. For example, if in not so developed countries, the exchange of the technology would take primitive level, and on the higher level, when we go, a developed country will be exchanging a high level of technology to the smaller country, and then how are these formulating the international relation. So I would try to include these different angles into my essay so as to make it as broad and as general as possible. That was the thing that I did in essay. And few things that I kept in my mind while writing essays, that I need to segregate the time proportionally, because I have to write 2 essays in 3 hours. So technically 1.5 hour for both the essays. However, because of this time lack of mock writing, I could not complete the first essay in 1.5 hour. It took me almost 1 hour and 50 minutes. So for the next essay, all that was remaining with me was 1 hour and 10 minutes. So I was already prepared. I've already done some of the mock tests, and I was aware of my general template regarding the essays. So it became easier for me to complete both the essays on the time. So again, writing essays before going into the examination is important. There are few of my friends who actually have some pre-made templates for some of the essays, because there are certain areas which are almost always covered. For example, empowerment of women, issues like hunger and poverty, health and education sectors. So there are certain predictable areas where you can easily make templates of. I have personally not done it, maybe because of lack of commitment to do it, and the other reason was also because I wanted to flow as I wanted to write my essay as the flow comes in my head. So I did not try to restrict my head in that term. However, this is a very good strategy if you can make templates of some of the predictable areas. This was regarding essay. Second is GS1. In General Studies 1, the the areas that come in General Studies 1 include history, then geography, and social issues. Social issues like poverty, women empowerment, etc., etc. So mostly, my focus was on the same matter that I used in my prelims examination. For example, for history, I again refer to the modern history modern history of a spectrum. Then for art and culture, I again resorted back to my Nitin Singhania. For geography, I resorted to NCERT. And for some of the social issues, I resorted to the current affairs. This time, one thing I added is I quickly read for 1 and 2 days. I quickly read a book on social issues that was available online. I'm not aware of the name of the book, but I quickly went through it in 2 days or something, and I made the notes of that. Just major topics, and I wrote major case studies or examples, etc., etc. So with the notes in my hand, I was able to revise social issues much more frequently. And since I have already had gone through some of the social issues, some of the static part of the social issues, the answers were coming a little bit better. In geography, as I said, geography, since I did only NCERT, and geography is also my optional subject, so it did not become much problem for me to cover geography. And in history is something that I always think that it requires us to remember a lot of analytical situations, a lot of things like that. So it is good if we write the answers, if we write the answers of history dedicatedly beforehand. So I've taken the mock test series. There was dedicated there were dedicated questions on histories regarding this. There were dedicated papers for history. So I became comfortable with that. So this is how the GS1 was there. GS2 was something that came hard, in my opinion, that came hard last year also and this year also. So the last year I got 92 number in GS2, but this time I got 110, which means I got 18 more marks this time in GS2. So what are the changes that I made this time in GS2? Oh, there were a few of the things that I made. First is I revised my Lakshmikant very good. Second is last year governance is a topic which I did not study, which I thought I will be writing with my general knowledge only and with some inculcation from Lakshmikant. But this time, some of the governance related issues, for example, social edit, citizen charter, etc., etc., I try to find their sources online or use Google for that. And for almost every of those topics, I had some matter in my head, at least 4 or 5 lines regarding that, and 1 or 2 case studies regarding that. And this time there were many questions regarding governance also. So this time the static along with dynamic played a good role over there. And thirdly, the international relation. International relation, I always try to cover them with the current affair material. So any current affair material that you are comfortable with any of the institute, you can totally try that. If you are like the genuinely regular reader of newspaper and that too extensively, then I think if you are comfortable, you might not need any of the current affair source in for international relation also. Regarding GS3, there are a few areas in GS3 that are covered. For example, economics is one of the areas, environment is one of the areas, and in my opinion, disaster management is also there, and I think security is also there. I'm not sure if security is in GS3 or GS2, but yeah, let's cover it here only. In terms of economy, since GS3 has a lot of economic component, if we see the paper of GS3, major chunk comes from environment and economy, and almost 2 questions comes from disaster management, and 1 or 2 questions come from security. So it's important that we are well versed with some of the economic terms, with the schemes that are there, and few facts regarding what is, for example, what is the tax to GDP ratio of India, what is the literacy rate, what is the poverty indicators of India, how are they performing, how is India performing on the credit availability, etc., etc. So I had a dedicated few pages where some of these facts were included. They were accompanied by the concepts that I developed in my prelims preparation. So in my prelims preparation, I've already read one book of economy. So I went back to it. I studied it extensively again and made small notes so that I can refer to them at the end. Second is environment. Environment is something that since I'm a geography optional student, environment is a part of geography. But other than that, if for say I'm not an environment student, then also environment can be covered through Shankar IAS book, few of the supplementary materials, a lot of it is covered with contemporary current affairs. If we see the paper, hardly any question is there that is not current affair in terms of environment. So if we are very well versed with some of the current affairs and the core concepts behind those affairs, for example, if state of the forest report comes, so that is regarding forest, then you should be aware about how much is India's forest cover, how much India is aiming to get forest cover, what are India's INDC, intended nationally determined contribution, things like those. So the concept part, if you have read those books, a few of the books like Shankar IAS and some of the supplementary materials also, they are good. They get good in your head, and you can use the contemporary knowledge and examples to substantiate your answer. That becomes very good. Then then DM, disaster management. Disaster management. So the disaster management is something that you can cover very quickly. There are few disasters and a few disasters that you need to cover. Almost all the disasters you can cover very quickly. It will take just 1 day or 1.5 days, and make some short notes, maybe 5-6 lines on each of those disasters. We have seen that over the years, the questions regarding disaster management are not very high, are not very tough. For example, they're asking regarding floods. They're asking about water scarcity, the issues regarding water scarcity, the consequences regarding the water scarcity, and we can also find new issues like nuclear disaster, etc., etc. These have certain static part, 1 or 2 static parts. For example, authority in India that deals with the disasters, such as NDMA, National Disaster Management Authority. What are the acts regarding that? NDMA 2005. What is the India's instance? Build Back Better, etc., etc. There are few static parts or points that you can use in almost all the answers. And to specific those disasters, there are few things that we can add. For example, regarding cyclone, we have, I think, early warning system in India. And currently in Uttarakhand, regarding earthquake, we have early detection of the earthquake. We have used some of the sensors. So there are so many things. There are few things, unique things that we can use for each of those disasters. Finally, coming to security. Security is something that is covered mostly by the current affairs. But I do understand that security is a very deep area. So some of you might want to get comfortable with what is happening in Northeast India, how its history has been, the issue of Maoism, the issue of terrorism, cross-border terrorism, and etc., etc. So there are multiple sources available online. Then you can refer. There are also some of the dedicated books that are available in security. However, I personally just resorted to the current affair material. Every month, only 2-3 articles of security come, so I resorted to them only, and they came pretty handy. And I could answer both this time and in the previous attempt all the answers of security with decent amount of quality. So those were the sources in terms of GS3. GS4 is something GS4 entails ethics, and this is something that is tricky to me. Now, why do I say that? First, in my first attempt in GS4, I could not properly read any material. I could not even revise any of the ethics related source that I had. Yet I got 131 number in my final exam, in my first attempt. In the second attempt, there was some online video by some coaching institute. I watched that and made notes of it, and 2-3 times revised it, and had a good ethical the static portion of ethics, which I inculcated in the answers. And this time I got 12 marks less, 119 marks. So it is tough for me to judge what should be done and what should not be done. However, on certain rational basis, I can say that it is important that we know some static part of ethics. For example, it's better to know what is aptitude rather than think what is aptitude and write at that time. It is better to beforehanded learn the small definition of probability rather than creating a new definition in the final exam. There are two benefits of this. First is it significantly reduces your time, because ethics is something which is a very big paper. We get 10 markers, then we have 5 or 6 case studies of 20 marks. So it takes a lot of time. So if you are already aware of the static terms like aptitude, attitude, emotional intelligence, IQ, and all those, then you can just use them as they come rather than create them. Second is, whenever you try to create a new definition, there are always possibility that the quality will not be as good as if you would have remembered them. And I'm talking about this in GS4's perspective only. In GS4, there are so many terms that directly come. For example, last year 3 terms were directly asked, define them and how they have been seen in the real life. So it's better to know them beforehand only and then write. This time I did that, but I might not have implemented other of my strategies, so I might have got 12 marks less. But nonetheless, 119 is also a very good score. So what I did was I let the ethical angle come along with my static portion. So I try to include a lot of examples, a lot of daily life practical examples. So things like those personalities, what are their views and thoughts, etc., etc. I try to do those things. So this is regarding GS or general studies and essay. There were few things that I specifically do for all of these papers, which I will be covering in my, if I get the time, like in my mains answer writing part. So currently I'm just covering each of the paper individually. Then after this, there are two papers that happen, English and Hindi. For English and Hindi, I just read previous year's paper, and I just one day before the exam, I just read the previous year's paper and try to attempt it. For English, I did not spend much time because all of my study have been in English, so there was not much problem. But uh, for Hindi, and I'm aware that many people would have some issues regarding writing essays in Hindi, the language that we can use, that we should use, etc., etc. So just to get sure this time, I wrote two essays in Hindi before one day before I go to the Hindi examination. So that was the thing. Yes, one more thing that I did was those big political terms like sovereignty, like independence, liberty, fraternity, equality, and all those. I tried to search the Hindi words of all of them and made a list of it. And there were some 40 words or something, so that when I write the essay, I do not get stuck by what sovereignty को हिंदी में क्या बोलते हैं, संप्रभुता बोलते हैं या ये बोलते हैं, etc. What do we call it? So I just made a list of it and I just revised it the day before my paper. That is all I did for both my English and Hindi. After that, geography is my optional. So geography is something that actually changed my rank. Last year I got 207 in geography. That was one of the reasons why the rank was low. This time I got 279. So around 280 I got. So there is a jump of 70 number, which landed me 84th rank. So in terms of geography, sir, if I should know, whether should I tell about geography also?
Yes, please.
Okay, sir. So there are few things in geography optional. Okay, the major framework of geography is there are two papers. First paper entails two parts. One is physical geography, another one is human geography. And then the second paper consists of Indian geography. In Indian geography, again, there are physical and human geography aspects. So I'll try to compare my first and second exam. And after that, if there is an issue, then we can totally talk later on. But I'll try to compare what are the differences that I made that actually got me 70 more marks, 70 or 73 more marks. In my last attempt, usually what happens is there were a few mistakes that I committed in my last attempt. First is there is a gap of 5 days when the GS4 ends and when the optional paper starts. So there is a gap of 5 days. In those 5 days, I did not utilize my time good and I did not revise my material. For a fact, I would say that there are, as I said, the first paper is divided into physical geography and human geography. This is the first paper. The two parts are physical geography and human geography. In physical geography, there are 5 chapters: geomorphology, oceanography, climatology, environment, and one more. I forgot that. Okay. So in my last attempt, I spent 4 days in just one chapter of one part of the first paper. So I just spent 4 days in my geomorphology. And then also, I think I was only able to cover 70 to 80% of geomorphology. And then the rest of the day, there was one more day remaining. And the one day, I quickly tried to run through the 4 chapters of physical geography, entire human geography, and entire Indian geography. So the thing is, I did not utilize my 5 days 5 days effectively. And as a matter of fact, when the paper came in my last attempt, I did not wrote any question from the geomorphology at all. There were two mandatory questions that I attempted. Other than that, I did not even choose those questions that were in geomorphology that I was not comfortable in. So the thing is, I spent 4 days for one chapter of which I never used, and the rest one day for 19 chapters, 19 or 18 or 19 chapters. Which, so the thing is, uh, it hampered my Indian geography. That is the second paper a lot, and I got only 84 number. So, and the reasons why I did this is because those are some of the personal reasons. I just kept playing. There were few, I was watching movies and something, but those are just excuses. I just did not utilize my time at all. In this attempt, what I tried to do is I tried to revise almost everything in geography before I start that chapter of geomorphology. That is one chapter. So in 3.5 days or so, I covered all my other parts that I wanted to cover. Then I dedicatedly gave 1 day for geomorphology, and I said to myself, however big it is, I will only do it for 1 day. May it cover full or may it cover 70% or 80%, I'll just end it over there. And actually it got covered full. So this time my management was good of the time, that 5 days management. Second thing I did different was the inclusion of certain innovative diagrams. And some of the diagrams that were not so common. For example, it is very common for a geographical student to make Indian map and world map. This time I included a few other aspects also. For example, I used bar charts, I used histogram, and I also used one place pie chart also in migration issue. So I already had all these diagrams my first time also. I just did not made very good use of those 5 days of leave that comes, and my final performance suffered. This time, when I used my 5 days good, I got confidence that maybe this time I can create the difference. However, I was not sure that I will be able to make the difference or not. But today, after clearing it, I can say that yes, those actually made the differences. Other than this, one more thing that I did was I tried to be a little more geographical in my answers in the second paper. Now, how exactly was that happening was, it would take a lot of time, but on a broad nutshell area, I would say that in Indian geography, I tried to inculcate a lot of physical geography from first paper, human geography from second paper, some of the geographers, some of the theories that I already used in the first paper, and Indian geography, Indian aspects. Second thing is I inculcated a lot of current affairs into it. So it was not just static that comes. For example, this time a question came. I'm not sure. Right now, I don't have the list. But last year, a question came on pollution in Himalayas, and I just wrote pollution in Himalaya, pollution as this and that. But if that question would have come this time, I would have given some geographical angles why this happens, stop and go determinism, and small theories from here and there. So that created a lot of difference, and that created a difference of 70 papers in just one paper, 70 marks in just one paper. That is, in my first paper of geography last year I got 128. This year I got 129. So that is similar. But in the second paper of geography, last year I got 84, and this year I got 150. Almost double. Not almost double, but yeah, like 150, a jump of around 66 or 67, 66 numbers. So that created all the difference. So these were the major areas that I did in mains, in all the different areas, different papers. There were few things that I did that is common to all these papers, that is regarding answer writing. Now there were few mistakes that I committed in this attempt also, and few changes that I made that were actually helpful. I'll try to tell the mistakes also, so that you do not, so that anyone who listen to this do not commit them. So I'll start with the mistakes that I try to do this time. Okay. First is I started preparing for mains little late because of complacency, because of home, because of being at home and not seeing the competition around. So I consumed like my first 1.5 months doing nothing, just watching movies and doing random things. So I started late, and that created certain amount of pressure. It was not pressure big enough to create a lot of stress, but still there was a pressure that I'm starting way too late. I might not get the job done this time. So confidence was always in doubt at that time, but somehow I managed. Second mistake that I did was I did not write a single paper in a single stretch this time. In my earlier attempt, since I was in Delhi, I would go to the test center. I would write all the tests there and only, and 20. I would complete the 20 questions or 16 questions or 17 questions. But I would sit for three hours and then I would get up. But this time, since I was at home, I became a lot more complacent. I would just write 6 to 7 questions, and I would go out. I would go out, watch some part of the movie, YouTube, and all those. So I did not write a single paper completely. That created a lot of trouble in my real mains exam. What were the troubles? I can totally recall there are three papers in GS only where I had to write 20 markers answer in last 5 minutes, and that was very action packed 5 minutes of my life, I would say. So they put you into a situation which are not so favorable to clear this examination. So if I would have had written complete paper in one sitting, I would have known how I manage my time. I would have had that mindset of constantly writing with a good speed and to keep the time management in my head. So that got blundered, but somehow I got saved because I committed a lot in those last 5 minutes, and I just somehow completed the paper. These are the two major mistakes that I committed. But some of the things that I actually did good in this attempt as compared to previous attempt were as follows. First is inclusion of different type of diagrams. Earlier in my last attempt also, first is I personally believe that using diagrams, flowcharts, and things like those in answers make your answers vibrant and give you an edge over the other answers which might be very good in the quality, but looks like they have been written. The examiner have to read them. So if you make the task easier for the examiner, I personally believe it is in your favor only. Okay, so making diagrams in the answers make the task of the examiner easy. So in my previous attempt also, I would make a lot of diagrams only, but this time there were few varieties in my diagrams. For example, I would at a small place only, I would make the arrow diagrams to show the two different components. Earlier, for example, if there would be a statement that I would be writing that this particular thing helps in increasing sustainability and development. This time I would do this will help in this. I would restructure that statement into that will help in two major areas. Arrow 1, sustainability, make a block over it. Arrow 2, development, block over it. So the presentation became a little different. It is the same thing that I did, and because since I used almost similar source last year also, so the knowledge base was almost similar. But this was something that I think created a lot of difference, that my restructuring of answer was there. Second is there is also restructuring in my answer in terms of the number of points I'm writing and the examples I'm writing. In my last attempt, I always used to write a lot of examples, but I realized that writing too much of examples are reducing my space and consuming a lot of time, and thereby reducing the number of points I'm writing. This time I tried to strike a decent balance between the number of point and example, so that my answer look good enough with the example substantiation. And second is, it does not look that I have not addressed all the aspect of that question sufficiently. So I reached that, and I try to write almost 5 or 6 points in almost all the segment of the paper, and give at least 2 examples. And by doing this, I realized that I'm using my space good, and I'm also able to concise my answer within 150 words. So that is the thing that changed. Second thing that I changed was I took a little more help from the toppers answers, how they are writing the answers. For example, last year also I did the same thing, and that's why the number were decent only last time also in GS exams. I would take earlier toppers copy I would see the questions, would try to frame an answer in my head, or would write the answer and then revisit them. After doing this exercise for a few days, like 3 or 4 or 5 days, I started to get tuned with how they think. And once that started to happen, the fear of writing an answer reduced. Like, what will I write? Will I be able to write it or not? That reduced, and I started to realize that everyone reads almost similar. There's nothing that they're reading a lot. It's just the way that they're presenting is different, and I need to learn that. And I would say there's no shame in learning through seeing their copy. I would go to an extent and say that you can also imbibe the same things in your copy only. As a matter of fact, my copy, if you look at it, it looks like a mix of 2-3 toppers copy. The way they present their answers, etc., etc. So I read extensively the last year toppers copy, and I try to inculcate those in my answers. Final thing that I try to do is I try to have a certain level of consistency in my answers. So my answers, almost all the answers will have introduction, body, and conclusion. And the weightage of introduction, body, and conclusion was also proportionate. Last year, I remember sometimes the body would remain shorter, so I have to extend the conclusion. But this time, everything was in at least in my head, it was in proportion. So the answers were consistent. That is something that actually helped in the answer writing. Beyond this, too much of detailing, but yeah, this is majorly things that I did. So these were some of the things and means that I tried to do. Regarding interview, since the marks were revealed yesterday only, or day before, I think yesterday only, I'm a little bit disappointed by that. But I did realize that my interview did not went well. However, this time I prepared for interview good, and I was hoping that I would get around 190 to 195 marks. But it didn't happen. But maybe that wasn't my day, or something was there. I'm not aware of it. But there were certain preparation that I did, and I became confident that I will be clearing 190 marks or something. In my mocks also, I was getting in my later mocks, I was getting decent number only. So what were those things that I did in terms of interview? First is I tried to get hold of whatever I have studied to a level there where I know 2 or 3 things, like 2 or 3 things regarding each topic. For example, the major issues like triple talaq, like women financial dependency, etc., etc. So I went back to the notes that I already have made in my prelims or mains and read them once and twice before the interview. So my static portion was good. So I was comfortable. If any question will come on the static portion, like do you know about this act, I would be answering that. Second thing I try to do is I try to get a lot of exposure through different mocks of different coaching institutes. Level Up is one of those institutes that actually that I went for mock interview, and I try to get a lot of feedback from the teachers. What should I do? What should I not do? And whatever their feedback would be, I would come back and I would see on some rational side what are the things that I can include, what are the things that I can change, and should I change them or not. And based on that, I try to make adjustments in my subsequent mocks. So that is the second thing that I did. Third thing is this time I had 3 more friends with me who had interview along with me, and I try to express the ideas of should we do this like this, should we answer this thing like this, should this be the slang that we can use. So we did a little bit of exercise of that among ourselves only. And every day I will try to answer few of the questions that would be coming up every day, the issues that were coming up, and slowly I get tuned into the mindset of interview. So finally, before going to the interview, I got a little bit of confidence that yes, this is something that I can do, and yeah, that's how I went into the interview. However, that was not a lucky day for me. I would say it was a good day only, but the areas and somehow it did not went good. I was hoping that I would get around 180 or something, but yeah, it didn't went very good. Last year the interview marks were decent, only 175 or something. But yes, majorly this was the thing that I did for interview, and I believe if anyone does these things, he stand a very good chance to score in any of the GS or exam or in any of the mains written exam, as well as in the interview exam. because these are somewhat on the rational side, somewhat on the adjustment side. So these were some of the things that I did in that.
Ravi,
Yes, sir.
during mock, we found that your answers were to the point, very concise. So tell me that how this played an important role while giving the final interview, that when you give very brief, concise answers. So how do you think that the students should be concise to the point in the interview and even in the answer writing? When you get the questions, you need to understand the question, you need to be very precise and hitting
So
the
concise
question in
is
that.
quality. Concise is a quality that I think a bureaucrat should have. So there are few things that if you are a concise in something, that shows some of the things from your side. First is it shows that you have clarity over something, so you're not murmuring over anything. Second is it reduces your time consumption. For example, if a specific question has been asked either in interview or in mains questions, question writing, mains questions, if you have clarity and if you are concise in your answers, it will take less space and less time for you to write. Thereby, you will be having more time to attend the other questions. The third thing is concise answers always attract the examiner's eye or an interviewer eye. Now, why I say this is because no one wants to. No one. I personally believe it is as a human, no one wants to read a paragraph or hear a 5-minute speech and get a small jinx out of it. It's better to get concise in that manner. If you're concise enough, you will be able to entertain more and more questions in your interview, and you will also be able to give more and more time to the other questions and main answers. This is how you increase your number. This is how you give quality time to each and every aspect in both the stages of exam.
Rahul, there is a question from a student. Rahul, he was just want to understand at what age one should start the preparation. Do you think early start of preparation is good?
Okay, sir. Rahul, the thing is, it depends upon what do you call an early start. So I know some of the people who start as early as 10th class, some of the people who start by 12th class in the college itself. Some people pick it up in the terms of their college. But having said all those things, I personally believe that if you are starting it earlier, you might have certain advantage, but that need not determine your preparation, that need not determine your rank, that need not determine how much you score in your mains or interview. So optimum time that I personally believe for this examination to have to be is if you have good direction and if you are not going here and there, is around 1 year to 1.5 year. And as I say, 1 year of preparation and the another year will be entire 1 year of examination, because this examination takes around 1 year. You fill the form in February, usually you get mains in June or something, around June. In September you get mains, and in February you get interview, and by the end of the March you get the result. So it is examination itself is 1 year. So so the entire process, I think, can if everything is on the point, you can complete the entire process by 2.5 years. So there's no need to get any early start. Even if it is your final year of your college, even if you have cleared the college, you are 23, 24 years of age, you should start whenever you think, you decide that this is the time that I need to start. Just start it and never think about it again, whether you have started late or not. So, and second thing I would say is, if you are starting it, if you are starting, whenever you are trying to start it, try to start with some guidance in your head. Whether try to first see any YouTube videos of the toppers, how they started, or find guidance from any coaching institute, or you can talk to some toppers or something like that. Try to have some guidance, so that even if your start is not early, your start should be effective. And when your start become effective, your time get reduced, and hopefully inshallah everyone will make it in the first attempt.
Ravi, any message for students who are going to give exam this year? Like prelims is on 10th. So any last minute tips?
Yes, 10th of October is the day of the prelims, and for a lot of people it is going to be a D-day. It is going to be a very stressful time the next 10 days. However, I would say is try to minimize the stress and maximize the efficiency. Try to cut off all the distractions at least for these 10 days and revise almost everything that you have read up until now, at least one time or two times. Revise everything. Do not get another headache if you have not covered a specific part, if you have not covered a specific subject. It's okay to leave it now, because now is not the time to cry over those things that you have not done. Now is the time to be happy about those things that you have done and be more confident over them. And confidence will always come through multiple repetition. So revise those things. Third thing I would say is try to manage your sleep cycle, try to sync it with the final exam. I know there will be some people, as I myself is one of those, who would wake up at night, whole night, study whole night, and will not be waking up in the morning time. So it's better to start syncing it from now. There's 10 days to adjust your sleep cycle and bring it to around 7 o'clock or 7 o'clock, 7:30 waking up time, so that in the examination you don't get sleep. Finally, I would say, please, for those people who are not confident in CSAT, do not take it lightly. At least do one or two previous years papers of CSAT, because I personally know two people who have crossed over 120 and 130 in their general studies, but they could not clear CSAT because they did not pay enough attention, and they were engineers also. So those were the people who did maths and all those in their engineering, in their graduation. So do not take CSAT lightly. And finally, one more thing I would say is, before you go to the examination, try to see previous 4 or 3 years current of UPSC papers, so that you get an idea, because up until now you have been giving the mock test, so you are into the sync of the coaching institute's questions. It's important that you get sync to the UPSC pattern also, so it will get better if you see last year's paper. These are some of the things I think they should do. Other than that, you all guys know everything. Have confidence over it. Trust me, you guys know more than me. Just have confidence over it and crack it.
Ravi, thank you so much for giving your inputs, that how one should approach the essays, how one should approach paper one, what one should study, which book one should follow in paper 1, 2, 3. Even in paper 4, you explain that at least before going to the examination hall, you must know the basic definitions so that you can save your time. In geography optional also, you told a lot of information that how you should even double your marks in paper 2. You like your marks moving from 207 to 279, and in paper 2 it's almost 78 to 150. That shows that if you will work in paper 2, you can easily score the marks. And in interview you also share your experience, so I'm sure that your experience will help a lot of students to understand this exam and help them in qualifying this examination. Thank you so much, Ravi, for your time.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sir.
Namaskar.
Sir, is it okay? Is everything done?